Mama, have you ever noticed how becoming a mother completely changed the way you see everything? Your work, your team, your capacity, your heart? Today, I sat down with Randi Sullivan. She's a new mama and longtime entrepreneur who specializes in team building and community. And we had an incredible conversation about how motherhood has deepened her empathy, strengthened her leadership, and really transformed the way she supports and mentors others. If you've ever wondered how to build a strong team, create culture, communicate better, and grow personally while navigating motherhood, this one's for you. Hey, mamas, welcome back to Mamas Building Businesses. Today, I am joined by Randi Sullivan of Ono Marketing. Randi, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am really excited about our conversation. You and I met recently just over the YouTube, and I think what you have been doing is really incredible. So, you have been in business for yourself for about 8 years.
Yes, yeah, coming up on 8 years.
How did you
Yep.
get into that?
I actually just really disliked what I was doing prior, which was teaching. And I was looking for the fastest way to retire. And I was recruited by the people who were handling my retirement program at the school that I was working at. And that prompted me to go look elsewhere for investment opportunities. And I became an investment advisor through that process. So that's how I ended up in this world.
That is so incredible. And I think that's like that first spark of like entrepreneurship. Like, what's the path of least resistance? I was at the barbershop this morning with my son, and I was telling it's this guy who cut my hair son when he was little, but I haven't seen him in like 8 years. And we were just catching up and talking. And I told him that I retired myself this past year from my marketing agency. And he was like, how old are you? How the heck did you do that? Like, I'm just starting to retire and I'm in my 60s. And I was like, it was on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was my first thought was how do I retire as soon as possible? And then I learned there's different ideas of what retirement can look like throughout your life too. It doesn't have to be full financial independence to be able to retire. You can retire in small bits and retire from careers that you don't like. And yeah,
Absolutely. And that's what I said to him. I'm like, it's not like I'm just like not doing anything, like I'm on a permanent vacation at 40 years old. It's just that I wanted to move on to things like this. You know what I mean? Then kind of the hustle bustle. And you recently had a little girl.
we did. Yes, she's 7 months old. Her name is Sunny. And it's probably the most exciting thing I've ever done.
And she's so cute. Like, I can't even take it.
Thank you.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about how business has changed since having Sunny.
Yeah, okay. So pre-Sunny, pre-baby, I would work all hours of the day and I liked it. I really enjoy working. I enjoy the purpose of it. And there's no problem with that, right? Because no one needed my attention. My husband, he had his own things and he was working and we would come together and that was great. But post-baby, that was not, couldn't be the case, right? Because she couldn't look at my face while my face was staring at a screen all day long. So I have learned, and I'm still learning, I'm not perfect, but how to just be more efficient with my time. And when I'm focused on a task, I'm doing that task because it's about how much quicker can I get back to my baby. And I went through a very interesting transition right after I had her. I did not want to work. I really had a strong opposition to, I want to take care of my home. I want to take care of my baby. I want to make good food for her and my family. And I didn't think I would ever gain the desire to come back and work again. And it was maybe 4 months postpartum. I really had the desire. I started working prior to that from home, and just a little bits here and there. But eventually that full desire came back. I was like, I'm excited. I'm re-excited about working and with my daughter and like including her in what I can. So praise God that happened because I would not be back here otherwise.
That's amazing. How do you feel that becoming a mom, like while you already, because not only have you had a business for several years, but you have really built a team. It's not like you were just a freelance, like single person. You have been running a team. And so, how has becoming a mom stretched you as a leader when it comes to your team?
That's a good question. I have always had empathy for mothers on my team, but until you have a baby, it is really hard to understand the pull that a child has on you and just the difference in what scheduling your life looks like and having to be flexible with a child. And so my empathy definitely turned to sympathy because now I can relate and understand. And I've gone to so many of the mothers on my team and said, you know what? I've always been here for you. I've always supported you, but I've never understood you. And I understand you now. So now that I understand, how can we make your schedules more flexible? How can we do the things that really need to be done? And so it's definitely opened me up to be a better leader for the moms that are involved in my organization and made me want to work with women more. So my niche has always included men that I've worked with, and it still does now. I work with couples as the nature of my work, but I'm focused on working with women because it's so nice to have a professional who understands being a mother in business. So I think that's the biggest way that it's stretched me as a leader is to go back to the moms on my team and say, hey, let's work together to make this make more sense for you.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, I pretty much have been a mother since I was a kid, literally. But I do think that you really have to have kids to understand,
Mhm.
like, just guys, when we were about to record, Randy's daughter really wanted a kiss from her mom. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. You literally don't ever have to apologize." Because that is the whole point. And I think also from a business perspective, the really incredible thing about working with mothers is you already have like this built-in rapport from the moment you meet because you understand. Like you don't necessarily know, understand, and trust everything about a person till you get to know them a little bit better. But when you're connecting on that, like, okay, we have kids and we have work to do, there is like this instant rapport that just happens. Have you experienced that?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. In fact, I even had an interview recently for a new person I wanted to bring into my office, and she had children. And her big thing was, she doesn't like to leave her children in childcare because she had a bad experience. And it was just so nice to be able to say to her, well, let's both just bring our children, right? And to have is just instant connection. And we wanted to work together all that more because we were both sitting there with our kids talking about business, and it was just such a cool thing.
I love that. You guys, well, if you've never filmed it for content, like for B-roll, you totally should
Right. Yep.
because I think that is so huge. And I'm always looking for pictures. Like when I do stuff for Mamas Building Businesses, I'm always looking for like women on a computer holding a baby because that's just like what resonates, right? Like those are the people I'm looking for. So, speaking of that, you have started an incredible networking group for moms. It's a professional networking group, but really the most incredible thing about it is that children are welcome at networking events. So, tell me a little bit about that, like when you started it. I mean, I'm sure we know what inspired it, but how it came to be.
Yeah. So one of my biggest fears was leaving my baby earlier than I was ready to, and also not being able to continue growing my business and growing as a professional after having the baby because kids are not welcome typically at networking events, at least that I would go to in my area. You can't really show up with a baby and be taken seriously. It's no one else is going to have their kids there. And so I was looking for an opportunity to stay involved in my community and building my business connections and my relationships. And so right before I had the baby, this was maybe a month or two prior, I've posted in the community groups around me and said, hey, I'm new because I was new to the area. I want to meet some other female business owners who would want to bring their kids and grab coffee and talk business and just chat. And so many women flocked to it. So at the first event, just coffee meetup with like 10 women. We wanted a way to stay in touch with each other. So I created a Facebook group and then it blew up really quickly because women were seeing it, they were sharing it out. And so we have almost 400 members in there now. And every Thursday we meet, we bring our kids, we chat, we don't worry about if the kids are being crazy, if you need to go tend to your children. We have a networking Zoom that we do once a month that kids are welcome to, but you got to stay muted so that it's not insane until you're ready to say something. And it's just been so nice to grow and network with people that get it and to enjoy it. And I made friends through it too, which was really cool during motherhood because I'm sure being a young mom, maybe you experienced your friends not understanding life. And a lot of my friends don't have children and they're really good friends, but it's hard to stay in touch when you don't have that commonality of kids.
You are so right. One of the things that inspired me even doing this at all is because, being a business owner can be very isolating. Like, even though you have friends you've been friends with forever, because they're not in the same space or on the same path, it's like a lot of the topics or the things that you want to talk about or the things you want to like really like bond over, right? They don't necessarily get, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're just on a different path. But I think the same thing happens as a mom, right? Because if you don't, like, if your friends don't have kids that are the same age as you, even, or at the
Yeah.
same age as your kids, it can be difficult. You know what I mean? Like, a mom with toddlers doesn't necessarily want to schedule play dates with a mom with teenagers. Like, so it's like, I think they both can be very isolating. And because our brains are wired for survival and we're always like, oh, we kind of are like second guessing, like, and kind of in like a lonely place, like second guessing, like, oh, is anybody else going through this? Or like, maybe when the baby's colicky, I had to lock myself in the bathroom for 5 minutes and cry just to not to hear crying. I remember doing that when my daughter was little, like, and she was not a very colicky baby, or she was a blessing. They always say your first one will trick you. She was very, very good, but I do remember like before we got like her sleep down and like just holding her and crying myself because I was like so sleep deprived. And it can feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody else. There's nobody else in my immediate circle that's going through this right now. And so I'm all alone, and it feels that way. So I think the incredible thing about what really both of us are doing is you get to connect with women that you wouldn't otherwise meet who get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so it. And I was very lucky too that a lot of the women that happened to come to my group also were a part of this like home birthing community. And I pursued that mainly because I was self-employed, obviously, and I had private health insurance and I could not get onto the public market. At the beginning of my pregnancy, I couldn't get onto the public market until open enrollment and that was in January. So I had my baby in April. So I couldn't see an OBGYN at the local hospitals near me. So it sent me down this route of home birthing, which then this group of women just happened to be really into that. And so a lot of the women were having babies and were in the birthing community. And so I made this group for work connections and to build my business, but they ended up filling my freezer with meals for me postpartum and asking how I was doing and checking up at like odd hours with me. And it was just like, it made my postpartum experience so much less isolating than it otherwise would have been had I not just had this group of women around me.
And that's true community. Like that is true because it's one thing to meet people, it's another thing to really build. And I'm a big believer that God made us for connection. Like we are supposed to connect. We are supposed to have community and be a part of community where because like we all need help sometimes. And then there's other times when we're the ones that are like full of energy and we're thriving. And so we can
Yeah.
help somebody who's down, right? So
Yes.
I think that is incredibly, incredibly amazing. So you have built teams and mentored other people in business. So let's talk a little bit about that because one thing I haven't talked about much on this channel yet is team building. And it was something that I did in my own business. And because I was in a management role previously in corporate, I thought like, oh, like I've already built teams. I thought I already had the knowledge to do it. And I guess like at the foundational level, I did, but it's very different when it's a corporation that like already has their processes in place, right?
Yes.
And all of that. And then building it for yourself where you literally have to like determine the SOPs, create those like the dynamic and the culture and that all of those things. So let's talk a little bit how you have, one, been able to do it successfully and how you have dealt with challenges or personality conflicts, because it's a
Mhm.
lot to manage when you have a lot of personalities
Yeah.
working together.
It definitely is. It's funny that you say that you felt like your background in corporate would be helpful for this because and that it wasn't as helpful as you wanted it to be because I had no background in corporate, right? I was a teacher before I did this. So I was not building teams. I was not in management. I had one little classroom of kindergartners. Like it was so different. And it was nothing like what I'm doing now, being in a leadership position and building teams from scratch and building those systems. And so I always felt like there was some bit of inadequacy that maybe I could have learned from the corporate world, but I'll never know because I wasn't a part of it.
Mhm.
But the dealing with different personalities, that's a really great question. I enjoy doing that. I love molding. I think that's a really helpful just a skill to have as a leader is to be able to mold to what somebody needs in order to be the right leader for them. Now, of course, you need standards for where you work. And so you have to hold people to certain standards and hold them to meeting what needs to be met. But it doesn't mean that everybody's going to get there on the same timeline or in the same way. And so I have young agents on my team that have worked with me for a while, and I have older agents, and they work so differently from one another. With my younger agents, I get them in the field quicker. I get them seeing appointments with clients quicker. I get them involved in the tasks at hand a lot quicker because they need that in order to have the motivation to go through the licensing for what we have to do. Whereas my older, what I've noticed is that they need to get the licensing done and feel adequate and feel knowledgeable prior to even being willing to sit in front of clients, even to observe appointments. And so it's interesting to be flexible in that way, especially at the beginning. I really wanted everybody to do the same thing. And like you come in here and you do this, but sometimes you need to split and have they're still doing the same things really at the end of the day, but they feel differently about it. And so that's one way that I've dealt with different age groups within it. And then personality wise, I do have a conversation with people about, because I have people all over the United States, all different ages, all different personalities, and we all show up to the same trainings every week that I'm putting on so I can teach everyone. I say, listen, you got to stay for the whole training, not just a portion of training, and stay engaged is what I mean. They are staying for the training, obviously, but stay engaged the whole time because you need to learn how to deal with other people and what they want to hear and what they want to, because some people are better with motivation. Some people are better with learning the technical skills. Some people are better with learning, being built up on the mindset. Some people need to be knocked down a peg. And so I got to hit every point during every training to make sure that I'm appealing to somebody at some point. And then when you're working with your coworkers or when you're working with your team, you need to be able to do the same thing and to mold to what that person needs. So it's extremely important just to be able to read people and learn about them, and not necessarily that you have to read their mind, but you have to be willing to take the time with them to create the relationship, to learn who they are, to then be able to lead them successfully.
Absolutely. And you were saying so much about the different ages. And when I built within my own business, everybody was, I think, my age or younger.
Mm,
That worked for me. And I never really thought about the age thing, but I totally understand what you were saying because, you have like millennials and younger who are in this like tech age where they're just used to getting information so quickly. And so they do need those quick wins to keep them engaged.
yes.
Where like when I think of like my parents, they're more like they need to understand all the ins and outs before they'll take action. And
Yes.
so I had never really thought about it because I haven't worked with many people in corporate, but they were all above me, like people
Yeah.
that were older. But it totally makes sense hearing you say that, and it wasn't something I had considered before.
Yeah.
But definitely the different personalities and taking the time and I'm sure, well, I'll say, I don't know if you have experienced this, but I think too, like just constantly working on your own personal development because
Oh, yeah.
once in a while, like you will bring somebody in where it's like they're an incredible worker. There's nothing like inherently wrong with them. It's nothing like, but it can be a challenge for you, like as the person
Hmm.
mentoring them. And sometimes it's a personality thing, sometimes it's a learning thing, but there's so much that goes into like us continuing our own personal development to be able to mentor and lead effectively.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I still work on it now. I just recently went down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to be the best leader for somebody who feels like they have ADHD or is dealing with that, right? Because I don't know, because my brain doesn't work that way. So I don't know how to do that. So there's continuously a need for me to adapt as a leader. And I've seen too, just where I've had pitfalls or people that I've let go. I had someone call me recently who no longer works with me, and she called me to say she's had great success the last couple months. And she called me to say, "Hey, I just want to let you know that you saw something in me that somebody else didn't see. And that is what set me down this path. That was like my catalyst to become really great." And my first thought was, well, what did I do that lost you? Like what could I have done to have kept you? Because you're so great at what you do now. And I would love to not make that mistake again in the future. I'm still waiting for her to come back to me with an answer for that. But I need to grow from it. I need to grow all the time because there's no way that anybody can have as much success as I want them to have if I'm blocking that in some way by not being a good enough leader.
Yeah. So I have sort of an either or question for you.
Hmm.
So if you had somebody come in that wanted to work with you and they're brand new,
Yeah.
what would be more important to you? Their skill set or their mindset slash personality?
Yeah. Mindset and personality, 100%. Absolutely. Skills can be learned. Mindset can be learned too, but it's much harder and it's much messier and it takes time. And so, the advice I would give to somebody is if you don't have a growth mindset, or if you're stuck in maybe a loop of negativity and you're recognizing that in yourself, you're becoming aware of it, jump on that first before you even bother jumping on a skill set of any kind. Because if you go down a skill set path, but you don't have the mindset to do it, something's going to get in your way. You're going to manifest some type of block, some type of obstacle in front of you, even if you are the best. My husband and I talk about this a lot because he's amazing. Right. So I'm not talking down on him at all, but him and I are different. He's technical and I'm a positive mindset growth thinker. And so he's that way now, but he was not that way before. And so even though he was technical and he understood things inside and out, he could never come across to clients working with them or to when training with our agents the way he wanted to, because the mindset was lacking. And so people feel that, they sense it. There's, even if they don't feel like they're that, you sense it on a subconscious level whether or not somebody is relatable or they can work with you in that sense.
It's funny you had said that about your husband because I think that's how I was for a long time. Like I am more of a I definitely am much more of a positive thinker now, but it took me a lot of work to get there. I was much more of a technical thinker, and so when discussing business ideas, I would be trying to like foresee any problems and fix them before they happened. But when you're talking to somebody in business, the way that conveys is like I'm coming up with a problem after a problem after a problem after a problem. And I meant well, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I definitely meant well, but I would
Mhm.
get so caught up in I mean, I still struggle with this sometimes. Like I would get so caught up in the how, not
Mhm.
necessarily like the long vision, right? Like are we going to make it happen? And it took me, I had a business partnership and the partnership was fine, but my business partner had said to me one time, he was like, why does it seem like you shut everything I say down? And I really had to evaluate because I didn't feel like I was doing that, and certainly was not my intention.
Yeah.
Um, it was just that I was trying to like preemptively fix problems. with the
Hmm.
idea.
Yes,
You know
you
what I mean?
communicate that so clearly. I'm can't wait for this to come out because I'm going to play it back for my husband because that's exactly the kind of conversations we have. And sometimes we struggle to connect. I struggle to understand what's going through his mind. So I love the way that you just put that because that just helped me understand him in a new light. That's really
These
good.
conversations are amazing for so many reasons, but when you said that, yeah. And I think, excuse me, people when they speak to me now, like my kids, for example, my daughter's at an age where she's in a corporate job, she's an accountant, and like we're very close. So she'll call me and she'll like vent about something that happened. And I'm like Miss Positive Patty, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, can you just let me vent once? Like we don't have to fix everything, you know?" She's like at the age where like sometimes she just wants to vent. She doesn't always want a solution. And
Yeah.
and it makes me laugh that that's like most people's reaction to me now because I was very much that way. And not so much with the venting, but more so just with the like my instant reaction was like, "That's a great idea. We could totally do it." It's like, well, if this happens, how are we going to fix it? If this, and it wasn't being negative, like, or
Right.
that's not what I meant. I mean, it was
Yeah.
perceived that way, but but it was just trying to be like really proactive.
Yes.
And so yeah, it takes work. It takes work. And I think there's a healthy balance, but it's nice with you and your husband when you have two people on both ends of that. It's
Yeah.
like you can kind of come together and find a middle ground, especially like when you have really good communication.
Yeah.
So, all right, back to the team and the partnership, because this was one question I really wanted to ask you. I'm a huge believer, because I did work in corporate for a long time, that company culture starts at the top.
Oh. Mhm.
So, with your team, how do you really intentionally create a positive, empowering environment, especially being that you all work remotely?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so our ONO, the name of my business, stands for on to the next one because that's our mentality. So, and I tell my team that we go through it in orientation, whether something goes well, it doesn't go well, on to the next one. You pick yourself up and you keep on going, and you can absolutely learn from situations, but you're not going to dwell on anything that didn't go your way in a negative way because it's just not useful to you, right? You deal with the things that are at hand. And so a lot of the reason I did not like teaching was because people were not happy in the administration and just the schools that I was working in. And I'm very sensitive. And so being around that was just not fun for me. I was very sad, every day, along with other factors, but that was a huge deal. And so when I had the opportunity to build a team around myself, build a business instead of having to go within an organization, I focused on that. And I told everybody as I would go through the interview process with people, I would say, I'm looking for people who are kind and who are going to remain kind in hard times. And if you fit that, if you align with that, awesome. I want kindness and I want integrity. Those are the two things that I talk about a lot because that is enjoyable. It's motivating. It's an opportunity for people to grow without feeling like rejection or like failure is finite, right? Because it's not. It's just an opportunity for growth. And so it is something that we talk about on a very regular basis, on our trainings, on our weekly trainings. We do a lot of mindset coaching. I'll do sometimes challenges with my agents where we listen to the same audios for a period of time and we reflect back and forth about it. I've done book clubs in the past. There was about a year time span where I woke up every day and the first thing I did was jump on Zoom, and it was an optional thing. But anybody that wanted to go through the 177 mental toughness secrets of the world class, which is a free audio and a free PDF that you can find online. And I did that. And we had reflection days. And I just think it's important, or really necessary for the leader to be emanating that on a regular basis. Because if you're neutral or you're negative, the team is going to take that neutrality or that negativity and 10 times it. Like they'll 10x the bad that you do, and they'll like maybe do half of the good that you do, generally, is what I found. So it's important that you're really working on it heavily as the leader and passing that down because you control the vibes of everything that's going on.
You literally do. And that's so powerful. You and I had a conversation prior to today where we were talking a little bit about, energy. And my last corporate job, the environment was extremely negative and toxic. And it wasn't even that people were unkind to me. There was a lot of drama in general in the company culture, like just completely unnecessary drama, like people dating each other. And so it was just dramatic.
Yeah.
And it was never drama that I was involved in, but the negativity was so inherent that I would just leave the office and I'd feel so drained. And I'm like, I'm really doing things that I wanted to do or I thought that I wanted to do, but it was so not enjoyable. Because of the environment. And you had asked me because I had put out a form about lining up guest speakers for the YouTube channel, and you said, well, what made you want to talk to me? And this is kind of a two-part funny thing because I was talking to somebody who looked at that form, somebody I know personally, and they're like, well, you don't ask them any questions about their business. Like you ask them for their social media and what's their superpower. And they're like, don't you care what their business is? Not really. Like I do, like I'll find that out, I'll get to know that. But one, I want to know what they think their good qualities are because that's really important. Like what can you share and put out, right? That is incredibly positive or that you're incredibly confident about. But two, like with you specifically, it's when I go and I look at the social media, like, is it somebody that I feel I am aligned with? That both, like, no, you can't necessarily tell somebody's personality from social media, but I do believe like energetically you can tell because I've come across profiles where people are, seemingly very financially successful in business. But then you kind of like you scroll through and you see like they have mostly business posts and then they sort of like are taking shots at people or like taking shots at
Mm,
competition and that's for me like that's just not energy I'm interested in, right? It is so important to be aligned. And when I asked you about skill set or mindset, I knew that you were going to pick mindset, which I totally agree with, but I knew it because you had asked me that question, like what made me reach out to you. And I think that's such an incredible question because you want to know what's working and what's not working and why people are drawn to you. And like you said, with the woman who you mentored and then she left and now she's incredibly successful, but she attributes you as the catalyst, right? You want to know, like, well, man, how could I have just kept her and kept fostering that until she was super successful with me? And I think that is the most incredible measure of a person in general that they are continuing to grow
yeah.
because I'm sure you would attest to you've been in business 8 years, but I'm sure that you would say I'm a way better leader today than I was 3 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I feel bad for the people that I led at the beginning. And some of those people are still around. And I'm so grateful for that because now they're getting the better part of me. But I think about that on just a daily basis, honestly, how different of a person I am now, especially now after the baby. It's so interesting. I just feel like so much has changed inside me. And one of my friends recently said, you're just the same you, but with a baby. And I was just thinking inside, I wasn't offended at all, but I was thinking, like, I'm not the same me. I don't feel the same at all, physically or mentally. And I'm, very grateful to be where I am now. But you're right. You're right. There is a huge difference. I'm a totally different person now. I was 24 when I started and I'm 30. I think even if I wasn't working on myself, I'd be a totally different person because you just can't make it through those ages without being different.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you do have to give yourself grace. Don't be too hard on yourself about those people in the beginning. I do that sometimes with motherhood because
Mm.
Because I worked in corporate so long when my daughter was young. We were just talking about this. So my kids are 6 years apart in age. I left corporate about 8 years ago. And so my daughter was, I think she was like in 11th grade, maybe. And my son was like in fifth grade.
Yeah.
So I have been able to be so much more present for him than I was for her. And it makes me feel very guilty as a mom. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
I can feel
Yeah.
myself getting a little emotional. Like
You're allowed.
it, yeah, it
You're
just
allowed.
it makes me feel guilty as a mom. But with that being said, what I am very grateful for now is my daughter is going into adulthood. Now she's in grad school, so they're not going to have kids. Her and her husband probably won't have kids for a few years. But I think because she has watched all sides of that with me, it will make her like she will be a way better mother than
Yeah.
than I was. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I mean, I was a good mom, but I if I knew then what I know now, there are definitely things that I would have done differently to be more present for her. I just didn't when she was little, I just didn't realize that it was even an option not to go to work at a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I just didn't
Yeah.
have that awareness. And so I think we have to give ourselves grace because we do take on, just as women, because we are more emotional and like it's in our nature to nurture. I think we take on a lot of guilt, like the mom guilt, but outside of that in business too. So, give yourself some grace. So,
If
all
yourself
right.
too, I think that's a conversation I've had with a lot of moms. I do think there is positive to your children seeing you work hard as a mother. You know, it doesn't all have to be about the home and about them and about their schooling and about their sports. Like if you're not a homeschooling, stay at home, baking bread mom, that is okay. I think there's a lot of positive to them seeing you being successful in the society that we have, and they're learning skills from that. And if you're being present otherwise, and changing over time, and it sounds like you guys have a really good relationship, there's pros and cons to everything. Just like we were talking about, there's pros and cons to how many years you have between your children when you
Yes,
have them. Everything is, there's sides to all things. So
there are. And okay, so speaking of how many years between your children, you are definitely going to be having more babies. How do you see your business changing as more children
yeah,
come in?
I want to focus on my networking group that I have. So Ono Women's Networking. And I want to keep growing that so I can continue to have my kids with me during these events. So I'm excited for our first in-person event because it's the first, not my first in-person event. I have them all the time, but this is a big one. We have 100 tickets sold already. We have 25 kids RSVP'd. I'm so excited to see what that looks like in real life. Like, what does it really look like for networking amongst business owners to happen with kids present in the venue with us? So this is like a total experiment for me to see, like, is it really possible? How much business is going to come from this? I'm so excited to send out surveys afterwards and see like what kind of connection did you make? Did you create referral partnerships? Did you get any clients from this? Was this useful or was it impossible for you to network with your children present with you? Because we know how much they take from you when you're with them, right?
Mhm.
They require attention. So that my thought with having more children is let's see how this group goes and how I can continue to make it accommodating for mothers to grow businesses, at least in my local community.
I think it's incredible. And I So I'm traveling, guys, during her first in-person event, but I really want to be there. I'm trying to send someone in my place. I cannot wait to hear about it because I think it's going to be amazing. I actually, about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I went to a business conference out west, and it was the first business conference I had ever been to where like I wouldn't say there were a lot of kids there, but I would say the moms who had kids like 4 and under had their kids there. And it
Hmm.
was the first time I like my background is like pretty strict corporate,
Yeah.
so like never kids involved anywhere.
Mhm.
Um, it was like the coolest thing I ever experienced. It definitely was like people would, go across the stage to talk or to accept an award and they had their kids with them. And I was like, man, I wish that I was doing this sort of thing when my kids were little.
Yeah.
So I think it's incredible. You are incredible, and I know that it's going to grow. So, all right, to wrap it up,
Okay.
for the mom who feels really alone in business or lacks support, and that could be support in business, it could be support with their children. Um, what is one thing you would tell them about the importance of community?
Oh, community is just so immensely helpful, and other people are desiring it too. So you might feel like you're the only one, or like you would be a nag or a drain on somebody by reaching out to see if you can build it, but you are not. So many moms desire to be connected with each other and desire to have their kids with them or not with them. There's nothing wrong with that too, but find your people. It's so worth just putting yourself out there and being a little bit vulnerable. I want you to know my group, when I started it, there were weeks where I had my weekly event and people didn't show up. Okay, so that's okay. You don't have to be embarrassed by the beginnings of creating a community. It will come together as long as you're persistent. So just stay with it. You'll find the right people for you if you just keep trying. You might not come across them at first, but it's there. It's there for you. It's doable. Work on, whatever you need to work on for your mindset, but just take action. Go create the community that you want because people are there.
Thank you so much, Randy. That was incredible. I look forward to us collaborating on more things in the future. We've already talked about some things and have them in the works. Um, and I will be putting all of Randy's socials and ways that you can connect with her or get involved in her networking group if you're interested in the description below. Randy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.